So today we're going to do a video where we're going to look at these 10 players that is going to be free agent at the end of the season, and also most of the players on this list. I got to credit to the article that Tom Bogert and Matt Doyle basically wrote on the league website, and I will, of course, will leave a link in the description below for you guys to read the article. But noted that they actually chose 12 players in terms of talk about some of the top MLS free agent this offseason, and I decided to just do 10 because 10 is definitely a rounded number, and that it's better to kind of just do 10 instead of just doing 12 of them, and that I did leave out 2 of the players. But if you want to find out all the players that could be top free agent heading into this offseason, again, I'll leave a link in the description below in terms of that article and their thoughts on these free agent. Now, what's interesting about this video is that I've kind of done something similar to this a couple of months ago when I did a video talk about all these players that is going to be out of contract by the end of the season, and you'll notice that there are some players on this list that is going to be similar to the ones that I talked about in that video of players that is out of contract. Though, as we are now deeper into the season, there are going to be something different that I might say with some of these players that was featured in my video where I talk about these players that are out of contract to now talk about all these free agents. And it's also important to note that, we do have the expansion draft next season. I mean, it's pretty much almost like a tradition. Every single year we have an expansion draft because of how for the past couple of years we have had an expansion team come into MLS. So don't be surprised I will mention a couple of times St. Louis in this video, talk about some of these players that could be St. Louis SC player heading into their expansion season. And if I remember in the expansion draft, and one of the rules is, I think free agent is eligible in terms of the expansion draft as long as teams don't protect those free agents, then they of course could be selected in the expansion draft. Now, let us actually look at the first name, which is Aaron Long, and this could be also a name that, talk about St. Louis straight off the bat. I could definitely see St. Louis decide to get Aaron Long. I mean, so far he has 18 appearances, 18 start, and have scored 3 goals. And keep in mind, he is also the captain of the New York Red Bulls. And if you know about the tradition of captains being with the New York Red Bulls, they don't stay long for very much, and also no pun intended in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Aaron Long could potentially move on because the Red Bulls in terms of captaincy, they move on their captain as soon as possible, and I've talked about how many times that captaincy role is basically like an exit role that in 1 or 2 years you're going to be no longer part of the Red Bulls organization. And for Aaron Long, there's been talks of him going to Europe, and at an age of 30, I don't know if he has another shot of potentially going to Europe. I mean, if he had a shot to do so, this probably would have been his last chance. So seems like maybe long term he's going to be staying in MLS. But like I said, I won't be surprised the Red Bulls would be moving on for him, and especially if there is a team that I can think that could get him, it's got to be St. Louis, with the way that when you look at these last couple of expansion teams, they have known to basically sign some big name player on the defensive end, and well known defender on the defensive end, and also in the defensive midfield. I mean, Charlotte last year, to some extent, they of course got Anton Walks, though. It's kind of interesting that Charlotte hasn't played him regularly, even though Walks has been considered one of the better defender in MLS, and especially during his time with Atlanta United. We saw Nashville SC getting Walker Zimmerman, and we even saw Austin FC, even though he's not really a defender, but they of course got Alex Rigg from NYCFC. So I can definitely see that St. Louis maybe think about getting not only a well-known defender in MLS, but a proven defender in MLS that is considered one of the best defender in the league. Because I think it's safe to say that Aaron Long is considered one of the best defender in this league, and it's no wonder why he's on the radar of the U.S. men's national team. And with just the amount of injuries that the U.S. men's national team has suffered in the back line, Aaron Long could actually be starting for the U.S. in World Cup games. And that I mean, there was a possibility that could happen, but with the way that I think with the injuries that has happened to the U.S., which is kind of unfortunate, that's now opened the door for Aaron Long that could represent his country in the World Cup, and he's probably very ecstatic to do so. Now, next up, we got Daniel Showery from Sporting KC, who have now appeared in 17 appearances, have started 17 games. He scored 4 goals this season while assisting 1, and there's no doubt that this feels like a very typical Daniel Showery second year after coming off of a breakout year. I mean, that's been one of the problems for Daniel Showery in his career, where he can come out of a big year, and he had a career year in the previous year, and he just doesn't able to follow that up. We saw that in 2018, and in 2019 he became one of the most cursed striker in the league. And then last year he kind of had a breakout year, though he kind of tailed off near the end of the season, and it seems like that form is kind of continue into this season, where he's not contribute as much as he did compared to last season. Now, that being said, we'll see whether or not if Sporting KC is going to sign him to a long-term contract. I mean, I mentioned in that video talk about players that is out of contract. I can definitely see Sporting KC moving on from Daniel Showery, especially are they going to go for a rebuild right now with the way that Sporting KC, they got a big decision to make this off season of whether are they going to just maybe retool, knowing the fact that the core is old, or the fact that they decided to just go for a rebuild because they acknowledge that the core that they had, it's been great to see that core do well, but I think it's time to dismantle and create a new core for years on out. And we'll see whether or not if Daniel Showery is part of that future, and especially there's always a chance that he could be going back to Europe, and that there's been talks of Showery potentially moving to Europe, especially last season when he was in good form. There was a lot of interest from a lot of European teams to potentially get Daniel Showery from Sporting KC, and SKC is definitely listening to that offer. But also, it's going to be interesting to see whether if they do sign him to a long-term contract, or if other teams are going to try to get him, because again, as much as he is being a little bit inconsistent throughout his career, if he does have a breakout year, he's going to have a breakout year. Then we go to Jonathan Osorio, who currently plays for, Jonathan Osorio with TFC, who have 16 appearances and 14 stars. I said he currently plays for TFC. He's always been playing for Toronto FC, and that's kind of something that is also interesting, where, is he going to be like a one-man club, and is he going to be like a club legend for Toronto FC, because he's pretty much been there since day one of his career with his boyhood club. But at the same time, there's been interest in terms of him potentially going to Europe, and he even expressed saying that he definitely wants to go to Europe. I mean, he's already a staple in the Canadian national team, and that he feels like it's like maybe this is kind of the last chance that he has of going to Europe. And in some cases, he's right. I mean, he's now hitting 30. Usually that's kind of around the age where it's kind of last chance saloon in terms of if you want to go to Europe or you're going to stay in MLS. But so far, he scored 5 goals and 6 assists, and TFC would definitely want to retain him, because like I said, if he wants to build himself to be a club legend for TFC, and a guy that will remember for a very, very long time in this club, he probably is going to stay for a long time. And Toronto is trying their best to maybe renew Jonathan Osorio contract and basically keep him long term. But if that, of course, isn't the case, then there's definitely many teams that would like to have a Jonathan Osorio on the team, because not only the fact that he scored big goals in big moment for TFC, but he's potentially one of the most underrated midfielder in the league right now. And yeah, we'll see whether or not if he is going to be stick around with TFC and him renew his contract, or is he going to go to Europe, or even the unthinkable, potentially traded to, or not traded but sign with another team as a free agent. Then we get to number 4, which is Jarzy Zardes, who have played 12 have 12 appearances and have started 11 games. Now, keep in mind, these numbers does not include the time he was with the Columbus Crew, because Zardes, of course, was traded in the middle of the season, and I believe he's the only player on this list that was traded in the middle of the season that is going to be a free agent. And again, that was always going to be a talking point when the Rapids signed Zardes, of whether or not if they're going to extend him to a long-term contract, knowing the fact that his contract is going to end at the end of the season. Now, so far, he has scored 3 goals and assisted 2, and most of the goals that he has scored so far has came in recent game. And you wonder, is this kind of the beginning of what we started to see with Jarzy Zardes, where we know he still got it, and he is still a Poland goal scored in this league, and that if the Rapids feel like maybe they want to move on from him, there's still going to be a lot of team that is going to be interested into. I mean, Zardes, even though he is hitting his 30s, he's not really on the wrong end of 30s. He's a guy that I think he can still scoring goals when he's in form, and that, as I said, in these last couple of games, it seems like that is the case for the Rapids, and that gives the Rapids a lot of thinking now. The fact that, for the first couple of games, I think it was a no-brainer, the fact that, Zardes hasn't worked out with the Colorado Rapids, and maybe they'll move on from him. But now that he's scoring for the Rapids, that does make the decision a little bit difficult of whether or not if they're going to extend him to a long-term contract, or is he going to be traded to another team. Then we get to number 5, and we get to Alejandro Bedoya with the Philadelphia Union, and this is a big surprise, because I thought Bedoya has locked a long-term contract with the Union, but apparently he's going to be out of contract this season, and the Union hasn't had any talks of potentially extending him to a long-term contract. He has played 20 games so far and started 19 of them, scored 5 goals and 2 assists. And again, I think out of all these players, that it is going to be the most shocking if that they are going to be move on from their team. It's got to be Alejandro Bedoya. I mean, he's a guy that he's been a staple with the Philadelphia Union. He's been a captain of that team, and potentially one of the players that could join in as the great Union player that played the club. So yeah, I would be surprised if the Union doesn't sign him to a long-term contract. But like I said, it's if he does let go, I'm pretty sure a lot of teams would want an Alejandro Bedoya on their team, and mostly I think not just because of quality, but also leadership, because he's considered one of the biggest leader in this league, where he's a guy that, if he does retire, I can definitely see him be a head coach, with him being such a leader to that Philadelphia Union team. Now, another player that I could definitely see become a coach later on is Anton Tinnerholm. He is a player that just came back from that ACL tear, which is why you've only had played 2 appearances and 1 start. But he still hasn't signed a new contract, and that it's kind of interesting, because with him coming back from an ACL injury, I think NYCFC is still evaluating whether or not when he come back from this torn ACL injury, is he going to be like the Anton Tinnerholm before he suffered that ACL? Because before he suffered that ACL, he was considered the best right back in the league, and there was no doubt that if he never had that torn ACL injury, NYCFC would have locked Anton Tinnerholm to a long-term contract. But now the fact that that's not the case, we'll see whether or not if NYCFC decided to lock him to a new contract. And especially, we saw before where NYCFC is not afraid to let go of one of their leader and one of the more important player in the defensive department that can contribute on the attack to an expansion team. And this is where I go back to the St. Louis discussion, where I won't be surprised if St. Louis would grab Anton Tinnerholm. Especially, we saw what Austin FC did with getting NYCFC captain Alex Rain, though they had to pay a hefty price to do so, because Rain was under contract. But if Tinnerholm is going to be on the market, there's going to be a lot of team that is looking to get him, and St. Louis might be one of those teams to do so. So yeah, we'll see whether if he is going to sign a long-term contract, or maybe there could be a case that he could be going into free agency market. Now, moving on to number 7, and probably the most well-known name that is going to be on the free agency market. Well, there's a lot well-known name, but this is probably the best free agent out of these 10 players, is Sean Johnson, who is actually going to be out of contract this season. And that's been kind of a discussion of the fact that, will NYCFC sign him to a long-term contract? And also another player that I can say that, I'll be shocked if he does decided to be a free agent, because he's just been such a staple to this NYCFC team since day one. But currently he has 19 appearances and 19 starts, and that he has 20 appearances and 20 starts, and he has had 10 clean sheet and had 56 saved. The 10 clean sheet, I think that's lead the league right now in terms of the most clean sheet that any MLS goalkeeper has had. So yeah, safe to say that Sean Johnson is definitely in the top tier of goalkeeper rating in MLS, and that again, I won't be surprised that NYCFC will sign him to a long-term contract, because you don't let go one of your best goalkeeper to another team. And I know there's a couple of teams that is trying to knock on the door in in terms of goalkeeper. I mean, certain teams call Atlanta United might become and not knocking with their goalkeeper situation though. Didn't they also sign one of a goalkeeper from Chivas that could be a long-term solution? So maybe not Atlanta United, but there's going to be a lot of teams that maybe need goalkeeping help that could potentially look at Sean Johnson as an option. And even though I know he is going to be in his mid-30s soon, goalkeepers around that time is kind of in the prime of their career, and I think Sean Johnson is definitely in the prime of his career right now. And that, again, I just don't see NYCFC letting him go, and that I expect him to potentially sign a new contract. But in case the unthinkable does happen, a lot of team is going to light up that NYCFC phone. And a lot of team are also going to light up the NYCFC phone, as we're going to make a hat trick in terms of talk about NYCFC player that is going to be a free agent, and that of course is Alexander Callens. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of well-known NYCFC player that is out of contract, and it's also going to be interesting to see whether or not if they can keep all of them. I mean, out of all these free players that I think that could potentially walk out or could potentially leave NYCFC as a free agent, as I said with Anton Tinnerholm, but Alexander Callens, I don't think is another one that will do so. I mean, so far 19 appearances, 19 starts, and have scored 3 goals. One of the most valuable player on that defensive side, and especially probably one of the best defenders in MLS for these past couple of seasons. And if he does end up on the free agency market, there's going to be a lot of teams that is going to look for him, especially teams that have struggled to defend. I mean, I'm looking at you, San Jose Earthquakes. It would be very nice to have an Alexander Callens anchoring the back line, wouldn't it be? But obviously, I know that would be a pipe dream, because that NYCFC, again, they're probably going to lock him to a long-term contract. And that, again, we have seen before where some top defenders have gone into the free agency market, but this would be one of the biggest one. And that, yeah, we'll see whether or not if that is the case. But for most part, I think NYCFC is going to lock him to a long-term contract. Then we go to number 9, and that of course is Ola Kamara. And I think out of most of these players that on this list that could potentially be a free agent, it's got to be Ola Kamara. I mean, with the way that DC pretty much have a limited source of forwards right now in their team. I mean, they have 5 number 9s right now on their roster, and again, with the way that Ola Kamara, I think he started to kind of he still regularly appear for this DC team, but kind of started to maybe drop down the pecking order a little bit, with the likes of Michael Estrada and Taxi Funtas kind of overtaking his spot. I won't be surprised he could be moving on from DC United. But so far he have 17 appearances, started 10 of them, and have 7 goals. So yeah, he's still a guy that can score goals. I mean, last season he's definitely proved that. I mean, he came actually very close of potentially winning the Golden Boot, and this season, he's quietly having a 7 goals kind of campaign. And that, he's a guy that, even though he is approaching his mid-30s and kind of in the twilight of his career, he's still a goal scorer in this league. And I know there's going to be a lot of team that is going to be vying for that, and that I won't be surprised that Ola Kamara could be wearing a new jersey heading into next season, and will be a new team, because most likely I think DC is going to be moving on from them, knowing that they already have a decent number 9 core in their roster heading into next season. Then at number 10 we got Ryan Hollingshead from LAFC. Almost said NYCFC for a second. That's the wrong team. It's LAFC, who currently have 17 appearances, 13 start, 4 goals, and 1 assist. And Ryan Hollingshead, I think he is always considered one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated fullback in this league, because the work that he has done, especially during his time with FC Dallas, is something that is not given enough credit. I mean, not only the fact that he's a decent fullback, but he's also a guy that can contribute in terms of the goal scoring department, and that he's kind of almost like a modern day fullback, where you see fullbacks nowadays, not only they have their defensive duty, but they do push man for, bombs for, to try and maybe create some assists or even score some goals. And that's what Hollingshead has done throughout his career, both with LAFC and also with FC Dallas. Now, it's also going to be interesting to see whether, if they do re-sign him to a new contract, and that was also kind of a discussion when they first signed him, the fact that, yeah, he's going to be there with LAFC, but Is it going to just be 1 year, or is it going to be a long term? And Hollingshead is a guy that I wouldn't say he's kind of a bench player, because when you look at the appearance that he has, he's pretty much a regular with LAFC with some bench appearance. But LAFC has had a lot of talent on their team, and that to keep all those talent and to keep it under the cap, they might have to let go of some of their best player, and maybe Hollingshead might be one of those. And if that's the case, then I could definitely see there's a lot of teams that could be vying for the former FC Dallas fullback. And that, again, I'm still very shocked the fact that Hollingshead did not stay with FC Dallas. Consider he's been a regular for that Dallas team ever since he broke through into the league, and that I would have thought that he would have been stayed with their long term. But apparently FC Dallas decided that they have some other priority, and that LAFC took full advantage of that. And I won't be surprised other teams might take full advantage of that too, because he could be a guy that could be on the market, and a guy that could be a hotly contested player that is going to be end up in the free agency market. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at these 10 free agent players that could potentially end up on the market this off season. And let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and also what do you think out of all these players, who is most likely going to be end up in the free agency market, and where exactly each of these teams could or each of these players could go heading into next season if they are going to be free agent and sign with another team. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.